"I'll take it off just for tonight," said the giant bride to the shy cowboy. Both had a long night. It was a warm summer evening in a small rural town. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, leaving a soft orange glow over the fields and the wooden houses scattered across the countryside. The town was preparing for its annual summer festival, a night filled with music, dancing, and laughter. Families gathered together, children ran around with glowing lanterns, and the smell of fresh bread and roasted corn floated through the air. For most people, it was just a regular summer night of celebration. But for a shy cowboy named Jake, it was about to become unforgettable.
Jake had lived on the outskirts of town all his life.
He spent his days tending to his small ranch, feeding the cattle, repairing fences, and riding across the open fields. He liked the quiet life. The stars, the wind, and the sound of hooves against soft earth were his favorite companions. But social events were not something Jake enjoyed. He was a man of few words, polite but reserved, and he often felt out of place among the chatter of townsfolk. That evening, his mother had insisted he attend the festival. "Come on, Jake," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "You work so hard every day. Tonight, you deserve to have some fun. And besides, there are people here you should meet." Breaths. Jake hesitated, feeling the familiar tightness in his chest. Crowds made him nervous, and the idea of talking to strangers made him even more uncomfortable. But he knew his mother would not take no for an answer, so he reluctantly agreed.
He put on his best shirt, brushed the dust off his boots, and tied his cowboy hat neatly on his head.
He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself as he walked toward the festival lights glowing in the distance. The festival was in full swing when Jake arrived. Music drifted from the open-air stage where a local band played cheerful tunes. Children ran past with ribbons in their hair, and couples twirled to the rhythm of fiddles and guitars. Colorful lights hung from the trees, casting soft shadows on the ground. Vendors called out, selling lemonade, fresh pies, and handmade crafts. Jake walked slowly, taking in the sights and sounds, hoping to blend into the background and avoid drawing attention to himself. As he wandered past a line of stalls, his eyes caught sight of something, or rather someone, he could not ignore. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen before. She was tall, much taller than most women in town, with long hair that shimmered in the evening light. Her smile was bright and confident, and her laughter rang clear above the music. She moved with grace, her presence commanding attention without even trying. Breath.
She was known in town as Emily, the Giant Bride, a nickname she had earned because of her striking height and her bold, confident personality. Despite her nickname, she was kind and gentle, though many people admitted feeling a little intimidated when first meeting her.
Emily noticed Jake almost immediately. She could sense his quiet demeanor and the way he hung back from the crowd. There was something about him that intrigued her, a calm, steady presence that stood in contrast to the lively chaos around them. She decided to approach him, her tall frame moving gracefully through the crowd. "Hello there," she said, her voice warm and inviting. "You look like someone who prefers the quiet side of life." He adjusted his hat and nodded, unsure of what to say. Yes. I like quiet," he managed, his voice low and hesitant. Emily smiled, not in the slightest put off by his shyness. "I'm Emily," she said. "And you are?" "Jake," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper.
"Well, Jake," she said, tilting her head slightly, "it's nice to meet you. Don't worry, I don't bite."
"I actually like quiet people. They're disprized interesting." Jake felt a strange warmth in his chest. No one had ever called him interesting before. He stumbled over his words, trying to respond, but Emily simply laughed, a soft, melodic sound that made him feel oddly at ease. "Would you like to take a walk?" she asked suddenly. "Away from the crowd, I mean."
I can see you're not a fan of all this noise. Jake hesitated. A part of him wanted to say no, to retreat to the safety of his own thoughts.
But another part, a part he rarely admitted even to himself, wanted to see where this might lead. With a small nod, he agreed. They walked together down a narrow path that led away from the festival grounds. The sounds of music and laughter faded behind them, replaced by the gentle chirping of crickets and the soft rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. The stars had begun to appear, twinkling faintly against the darkening sky. Jake felt his nerves slowly start to ease. Emily talked freely, sharing stories about her childhood, about growing up being taller than everyone else, and about the little things she loved in life, painting, watching sunsets, and helping at the local animal shelter. Jake listened, fascinated. Her confidence was captivating, but so was her vulnerability. He realized that beneath her bold exterior, she was someone who valued kindness and honesty. Jake, in turn, began to open up. He told her about his ranch, his daily routines, and the simple joys of his quiet life. He spoke about the horses he loved, the freedom of riding across the open fields, and the satisfaction of a job well done. Emily listened intently, her eyes bright with curiosity and admiration. As they walked, a gentle silence fell between them. It wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. They had found a rhythm in their steps, a quiet companionship that neither had expected. Emily glanced down at Jake, noticing how he avoided meeting her eyes directly at first, but gradually started looking at her with trust. At one point, they reached a small wooden bridge overlooking a narrow stream. The moonlight reflected on the water, casting a silver glow that made the night feel magical.
Emily stopped and leaned slightly on the railing, smiling at Jake.
"You know," she said softly, "I don't usually do this. Talk to strangers like this."
"But there's something about you, Jake. You're different." Jake felt a flush of warmth across his cheeks. I'm not sure what to say," he admitted. "You don't have to say anything," Emily replied. "Just being here with me is enough." For the first time in a long while, Jake felt completely understood. He didn't need to impress her or hide his quiet nature. Emily seemed to appreciate him exactly as he was. They stood together on the bridge, looking at the gentle flow of water beneath them. The world felt far away. The festival, the noise, the people, all of it was distant and unimportant. What mattered was this moment, the shared silence, and the growing connection between two very different people.
Eventually, Emily spoke again, her voice playful this time.
"You know, Jake, I think you're braver than you realize. Most people would never have agreed to walk away from the crowd with me."
But you did, and I like that.
Jake managed a small smile, feeling a sense of pride he hadn't felt in a long time.
I guess I just felt like it was...
"The right thing to do," he said quietly. Emily laughed softly.
"The right thing indeed," she said. "And you know, I think tonight might be the start of something."
Heart skipped a beat. Jake's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew that this night, the quiet walk under the stars, the gentle laughter, and the shared stories was the beginning of a connection he had never imagined possible.
As they started walking back toward the festival, the lights and music gradually coming into view again, Jake realized that his world had expanded just a little.
He had stepped out of his comfort zone, met someone extraordinary, and discovered that being quiet didn't mean being invisible. Emily looked at him and winked, a spark of mischief in her eyes. "Tomorrow, people might talk about this night, but tonight, it's ours." Jake nodded, feeling a rare sense of excitement and anticipation. For once, he wasn't thinking about the future or worrying about what others might say. He was simply living in the moment, enjoying the company of someone who saw him for who he really was. And as they rejoined the festival, walking side by side under the twinkling lights, Jake realized that sometimes the most unexpected meetings could lead to the most unforgettable nights. But after their quiet walk under the stars, Jake and Emily returned to the festival, but neither of them felt the need to join the crowd again. Instead, they found a quiet corner near an old barn at the edge of the field, where the music and laughter were faint but distant. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a gentle silver glow over the haystacks and wooden fences. The night felt peaceful, almost like it belonged only to them. Emily leaned casually against a wooden post, her tall figure casting a long shadow across the ground. Jake stood a few steps away, trying to find the right words to say. He felt a strange mix of nervousness and excitement. He had never spent time with anyone like Emily before, someone so bold, so confident, yet so genuinely kind. "I like nights like this," Emily said softly, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. Quiet, calm, and honest. "You can really talk without worrying about who's watching, Bray."
Jake nodded, grateful for her words.
I like quiet nights too, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Most people don't really notice them." Breaths. Emily smiled gently. "Maybe that's because quiet people notice things others miss," she said.
Little details, small moments, the things that make life special.
Her words made Jake pause. He had spent so many years working on the ranch, observing the land, the animals, and the skies, but rarely had anyone acknowledged the care and attention he put into his life.
Emily's words felt like a recognition of him, not just his actions, but who he was. They sat on a stack of hay, the cool night air brushing against their faces. Emily shifted closer, not in a threatening way, but in a manner that made Jake feel included, as though he were part of her world.
"Jake," Emily began, her tone serious but kind. "Can I tell you something personal?"
His instincts told him to be careful, to protect his heart, but something about her made him want to trust her. He nodded slowly. "Brace. I'm not always confident," she confessed. "People see me as tall and strong, but sometimes I feel fragile, like I don't fit in, no matter where I go." Jake listened intently. He could see the honesty in her eyes. Her vulnerability struck a chord deep within him. For so long he had hidden his own fears and insecurities, believing that no one would understand. But hearing her admit her own made him feel a strange sense of relief. They were different, yet alike in the quiet struggles they kept hidden. "I understand," he said softly. "I don't speak much, and people often think I'm just shy. But it's not that. I don't know how to fit in either." "Pet." Emily nodded, her eyes warm. "See? But that's why I like being with you. You get it. You don't judge, and you don't pretend. You just are." The words made Jake's heart pound. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. Emily's presence was comforting yet thrilling. He realized that for the first time in his life, someone truly saw him. They stayed on the haystack for a while, sharing small stories about their lives. Emily talked about growing up in the town, always towering over her classmates, feeling like she had to prove herself constantly. She described how she loved helping at the animal shelter and painting in her free time. Her stories were full of humor and honesty, and Jake found himself laughing more than he had in months. Jake, in turn, shared tales from the ranch, how he woke up before sunrise to feed the animals, the challenges of repairing fences in the hot sun, and the satisfaction of riding his horse across the open fields. He spoke about the nights he spent staring at the stars, feeling both small and connected to something greater. Emily listened with fascination, asking questions and showing genuine interest. At one point, Emily tilted her head, looking at Jake with a playful smile.
"You know, for someone so quiet, you have a lot of interesting stories," she said.
"Psst, I didn't expect that." Jake blushed, scratching the back of his neck. I guess I just don't talk much around people I don't know," he admitted. "But with you, it feels different." Emily's eyes softened.
"I'm glad it feels different," she said.
"Because I like talking to you, Jake. Really like it." He realized that he could be himself without fear of judgment. He even smiled, a small but genuine expression that reached his eyes.
Emily noticed, her own smile widening. As the night deepened, the temperature dropped slightly, and a gentle breeze rustled the nearby trees.
Emily shivered and wrapped her arms around herself. Jake, noticing this, instinctively offered his jacket. "Here, take this," he said, holding it out to her.
Emily looked surprised but grateful.
She accepted the jacket, draping it over her shoulders. "Thank you, Jake," she said softly. "Psst, that's really kind of you."
"You're welcome," he replied, his voice steady now. The simple act of sharing his jacket felt natural, as though it was meant to happen.
They continued talking, their conversation moving from lighthearted stories to deeper topics. Emily spoke about her fears, fear of being judged, of not being understood, of never finding someone who truly accepted her.
Jake shared his own insecurities, fear of failing at the ranch, fear of being overlooked, fear of not being enough. As they opened up to each other, a sense of trust grew between them. They realized that despite their differences, her boldness, his quiet nature, they shared common feelings and experiences. They were both searching for understanding, for companionship, for someone who could see beyond appearances and recognize their true selves. Emily glanced at Jake, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "You know, I've never met anyone like you," she said.
"Most people are intimidated by me. Or they expect me to be something I'm not."
"But you just see me." Jake felt his heart swell. I see you," he said simply. "All of you." There was a pause, a quiet moment where the world seemed to stop. The festival lights were far away, the music barely audible, and all that mattered was the connection between them.
Emily reached out and gently took Jake's hand.
The touch was warm and reassuring, a silent promise that they could trust each other. "You're brave, Jake," she said softly.
Braver than you realize. He looked at her, unsure what to say.
He looked at her, unsure what to say. He felt brave, but only because she made him feel safe, accepted, and understood.
I think it's easier when someone believes in you," he admitted. Emily nodded, squeezing his hand gently.
"Exact, and I believe in you." The night continued, and they wandered further from the festival, exploring quiet fields and moonlit paths. They laughed at small things, a frog jumping into the stream, the sound of an owl hooting nearby, the way the grass felt beneath their boots. They shared small, playful moments, teasing each other lightly, learning each other's quirks and habits. At one point, Emily stopped and looked at Jake seriously. "Can I show you something?" she asked. Jake nodded, curious. She reached up and carefully lifted her wedding veil, a symbolic piece she wore at a recent family event. Inspirations.
I usually only wear this for appearances, she said. But I want you to see me like this. Just for tonight?
Jake was stunned. The gesture was intimate, but not inappropriate. It was a sign of trust, a window into her vulnerability. He realized how much she was opening herself to him, letting him into a part of her life few others ever saw. "Emily," he began, unsure how to express his feelings. She smiled softly. "It's okay, Jake.
You don't have to say anything. Just be here with me."
Jake nodded, feeling a deep sense of connection. He realized that trust and understanding were more powerful than words. He didn't need to impress her. He just needed to be himself. The night stretched on, filled with quiet moments, laughter, and shared stories.
They discovered a rhythm together, a comfortable companionship that neither had expected. Emily's confidence and Jake's quiet strength complemented each other perfectly.
They were learning to see each other fully, not just the surface, but the heart beneath. As the first hints of dawn began to appear on the horizon, the sky painted in soft shades of pink and gold, they paused to watch the sunrise. The night had been long, full of discovery, laughter, and honesty. Both of them felt changed, more open, more trusting, more alive. Emily turned to Jake, her eyes reflecting the morning light. "Thank you," she said softly. "For tonight, for listening, for being here, for being you, for being you." Jake smiled, feeling a warmth he had never known. "Thank you," he replied.
"For trusting me and for letting me see you." In that quiet moment under the soft glow of dawn, they understood something important. Real connection wasn't about appearances, about boldness or shyness, or even about fitting into the world's expectations.
It was about trust, honesty, and being willing to see someone fully and be seen in return. And as the town began to stir awake, with the sounds of roosters crowing and the smell of fresh bread drifting from nearby houses, Jake and Emily felt that their night together had marked the beginning of something meaningful, something built on understanding, respect, and a gentle, growing affection. They didn't know what the future held, but for now, they had each other, and that was enough. After watching the first hints of sunrise, Jake and Emily didn't feel ready to return to the festival. The town was waking up, but the world still felt quiet and private, as if it existed only for the two of them. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of dew-covered grass and the faint aroma of baked bread from nearby houses. For Jake, nights like these were rare, a time to step outside the familiar routines of the ranch and discover something new.
Emily suggested they walk toward the old river that ran a few miles beyond the town.
"It's quiet there," she said with a smile. "You can hear the water, the wind, and maybe even the fish jumping." Jake hesitated. He wasn't used to wandering long distances at night, but Emily's excitement was contagious. "Okay," he agreed softly.
Rasp through breaths. "Lead the way." They walked side by side along a narrow dirt path, the soft light of the rising sun beginning to illuminate the fields. Emily's tall figure moved confidently through the grass, and Jake admired the way she seemed completely at ease with herself. Despite her height, she never seemed clumsy or awkward. Every movement had grace and purpose.
"You know," Emily said after a moment of silence, "I never thought I'd meet someone like you. Someone quiet, but strong in a way that's not loud or showy."
Bros. Jake looked at her surprised. "Strong?"
"Me?"
"Yes," Emily said, laughing softly. "You handle your life, your ranch, and your responsibilities without boasting."
"You're steady."
That's a kind of strength many people don't have. Jake felt his face warm. compliments didn't come easily to him, and hearing this from someone he admired made him feel seen in a way he never had before. "Thanks," he said quietly. "That means a lot." As they walked, they passed through fields dotted with wildflowers. The grass brushed against Jake's boots, and the early morning dew made the earth feel soft beneath their feet. Emily bent down to pick a small bunch of white flowers, holding them out to him. "For you," she said, "but to remember tonight." Jake accepted them, feeling a small rush of happiness. He carefully tucked the flowers into the pocket of his shirt. "Thank you," he murmured. "I'll keep them." They continued walking, sharing small stories and laughter. Emily told him about the time she tried to ride a horse as a child and ended up tumbling into a mud puddle. Jake laughed so hard he had to lean against a fence post for support. In return, he shared stories of his own clumsy moments on the ranch. Times he tripped while feeding cattle or gotten stuck in the mud while repairing a fence. Each story brought them closer, building a sense of comfort and familiarity that neither had expected. After a while, they reached the river. The water flowed gently, reflecting the soft colors of dawn. Birds began to chirp, adding music to the serene scene. Emily knelt by the edge of the water, letting her fingers trail in the cool stream. Jake sat nearby on a rock, watching her with a quiet admiration. "Bah."
It's beautiful here, Emily said, her voice soft, peaceful.
Yeah, he glances around in despite. Jake nodded.
I come here sometimes to think, he admitted. It's calming.
The world feels simpler by the river. Desperate Emily smiled. "I can see why. You can really hear yourself think here." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, letting the river's gentle sound fill the space between them. Jake noticed how the morning light caught Emily's hair, making it shimmer like gold. Breath. She looked at him and winked, teasing him gently. "See?" Breath. "Even the sun agrees you're worth noticing," she said with a smile. Jake chuckled, feeling a lightness in his chest he hadn't felt in months. Her presence was playful but never overbearing, and he found himself relaxing completely. After a while, Emily leaned back on the grass, gazing up at the sky. "You know, Jake, I usually find people boring if they don't talk much," she admitted. "But you make silence interesting."
Jake raised an eyebrow.
"Silence? Interesting?" "Yes," Emily said, laughing. "It's like you think and notice things others miss." "And I like that. It's rare." He felt a warmth spread through him. No one had ever noticed that about him before. Most people assumed his quiet nature meant he was dull or shy, but Emily appreciated it. For the first time, he felt that his way of being was enough. The conversation naturally shifted to dreams and future plans. Emily spoke about wanting to travel someday, to see new places and experience life beyond the town. Jake admitted he'd never traveled far. The ranch had been his whole world. But he also shared his small dreams, maybe expanding the ranch one day, teaching children in town about animals, and finding someone who truly understood him. Emily's eyes softened. "You know, Jake, dreams don't have to be big to matter. What matters is that they're yours."
And I like that about you. Jake felt a rush of gratitude.
Emily's words weren't just kind, they were affirming. He realized he could share his hopes without fear of judgment. As the sun rose higher, Emily suggested they play a little game. "Let's race to that big tree over there," she said, pointing to a solitary oak near the riverbank. Rasp. "Loser has to tell a secret." Jake hesitated. He wasn't fast, and he didn't like running, but he agreed anyway.
Okay, but don't laugh if I fall, he warned.
Emily grinned. No promises.
They sprinted across the grass, Emily's long legs giving her an advantage. Jake stumbled a little but kept going, laughing despite himself.
When they reached the tree, Emily was slightly ahead, out of breath but smiling. "All right," she said, holding her hands on her knees.
"Time for the secret."
Jake grinned shyly.
"I sometimes talk to the horses at night,"
he admitted. "I tell them things no one else knows. They listen better than people sometimes." Emily laughed softly. Breath. "I think that's sweet. I used to talk to my plants like that." They spent the next hour exploring the riverbank, skipping stones, laughing at small splashes, and teasing each other gently. Emily showed Jake how to skip a stone, and he, after several failed attempts, finally got one to bounce twice before sinking. Emily clapped and cheered for him, making him feel proud in a way that had nothing to do with work or chores. Later, they found a quiet spot under the shade of a large tree. Emily lay back on the grass, looking at the sky. Jake sat nearby, watching her peacefully. Smile. "You know, Jake, I feel like I've known you longer than just one night," she said. Jake was taken aback. "Breath. Really?" "Yes," Emily said. "Sometimes you meet someone and it just clicks. You understand each other without needing too many words. That's how it feels with us." Round in his chest, a feeling he hadn't expected. I feel the same, he admitted quietly. Great. As they sat together, the world around them seemed to fade. The river flowed gently, the birds sang their morning songs, and the breeze rustled the leaves above. They didn't need to speak constantly. Their presence alone was enough. They shared glances, small smiles, and gentle laughter, discovering a rhythm of companionship that felt natural and easy. Emily's gaze grew softer, more serious. "Jake, I trust you," she said. "Not just for tonight, but I think I could trust you with a lot, Bray." He glances around in despair. "I'd trust you too," he said sincerely. "More than I've trusted anyone in a long time." It was a rare and powerful moment. Trust wasn't something Jake gave easily, and Emily rarely offered it without reason. Yet here they were, both opening themselves fully, finding comfort and understanding in each other. They spent the next hours wandering along the river, sitting on fallen logs and simply enjoying the quiet companionship. Emily leaned against Jake at one point, a simple gesture that spoke volumes about the closeness they had built. Jake didn't move away. Instead, he felt a sense of protection and care he hadn't known he needed. By mid-morning, the sky was bright, and the town was fully awake. Farmers were out in the fields, and children's laughter echoed from nearby homes. But Jake and Emily didn't feel rushed to return. The night had been long, filled with laughter, shared secrets, and emotional closeness. Both of them had discovered a bond deeper than they expected. A bond built on trust, understanding, and the quiet joy of being together. Pace. As they finally turned to head back toward town, Emily smiled at Jake. "Tonight was special," she said softly. Jake nodded. "It really was," he replied. "I'll never forget it." And as they walked back side by side under the brightening sky, they both knew that this night, filled with laughter, trust, and gentle intimacy, had changed them. They had discovered not just each other, but also the courage to be themselves, fully and without reservation. For Jake, it was a night of realization, that quiet strength could connect with bold confidence in ways he never imagined. For Emily, it was a night of understanding, that even the most reserved heart could hold warmth, humor, and honesty. Together they had shared a long, unforgettable night, one that would remain in their memories for a lifetime. The first rays of the sun broke through the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of pink, gold, and lavender. The night had finally ended, but Jake and Emily didn't feel ready to leave the quiet world they had shared. They sat on a small hill overlooking the town, watching as the streets slowly came alive. Farmers walked toward the fields. The sound of chickens clucking filled the air, and the smell of freshly baked bread drifted from nearby houses. Yet, despite the world around them waking up, they were still wrapped in the calm cocoon of their own companionship. Emily stretched her arms and yawned. "What a night," she said softly, her voice still tinged with sleepiness. "I didn't expect to have so much fun, or to feel so comfortable with someone." Jake smiled, brushing the dust off his pants. "Neither did I," he admitted. I didn't think I'd ever spend a night like this with anyone." Emily looked at him with a playful glint in her eyes. "Well, that's what makes it special, right? Unexpected, unusual, perfect in its own way." "Break." Jake laughed quietly. "Perfect. I never thought I'd use that word for a night like this." They sat in silence for a while, letting the morning sun warm their faces. The night had been long, filled with laughter, playful moments, and heartfelt conversations. Both of them felt different now, not just in mood, but in perspective. Jake felt lighter, as if a weight he had carried for years had been lifted. Emily felt seen in a way she rarely did, and for the first time in a long while she felt entirely at ease with someone.
"You know," Emily said thoughtfully, "I've spent so much time trying to fit in, trying to be what people expect me to be. Tall, confident, maybe even intimidating. But tonight, I didn't have to try at all.
I could just be me." "I feel the same," he said. "Bree, I usually keep to myself because it's easier. But with you, I didn't have to pretend." Emily smiled warmly. "I think that's why we get along so well. We can be ourselves, no masks, no games." Breaths, brushing the morning dew from their clothes.
Emily reached out and gently took Jake's hand.
"Promise me something?" she said softly. Jake looked at her, curious. "What?" "Promise me that we won't let this night be forgotten," she said. "That we'll remember it and, maybe make more nights like this in the future."
Jake squeezed her hand gently.
"I promise," he said sincerely. "I don't want to forget this night either." As they began walking back toward the town, the sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the fields. The world was waking up, but they felt as though they had a secret universe all to themselves, a universe of trust, laughter, and understanding. They passed by familiar places, the old barn, the riverbank, the hayfields where they had played and talked. Breaths. Each spot held memories from the night, and they lingered for a moment at each one, smiling and sharing quiet laughter. Emily stopped near the river, watching the water flow. "Do you ever think about the future, Jake?" she asked quietly. Jake thought for a moment. "Sometimes," he admitted.
But I usually try not to worry too much. Life on the ranch keeps me busy.
"But after tonight, I feel like maybe the future doesn't have to be scary."
Emily nodded.
"But I feel the same. Maybe the future isn't about being perfect or knowing everything. Maybe it's about finding the right person to share it with, someone who understands you,
Jake glanced at her, feeling a rush of warmth in his chest.
I think I found someone like that, he said softly. Emily's eyes sparkled, and she squeezed his hand gently.
And I think I have too, she replied. They continued walking through the quiet town, the streets slowly filling with the sounds of morning life.
Neighbors waved from their porches, children ran past with baskets of flowers, and the smell of fresh bread made their stomachs growl, yet they felt no rush. The world could wait a little longer.
Eventually, they reached the town square, where the festival had been the night before.
The decorations had been taken down, but small signs of celebration remained: scattered ribbons, a few glowing lanterns, and the faint scent of roasted corn. It was a quiet, peaceful scene, a reminder of the joy they had shared. Emily turned to Jake, her expression thoughtful.
You know, I used to be afraid of nights like this, she admitted.
Afraid of meeting someone new. Afraid of being misunderstood.
But tonight, everything felt right.
Jake smiled, feeling a deep sense of connection.
I used to be afraid too,
he said. Afraid that people wouldn't understand me, that I'd always be alone. But with you, I don't feel that way anymore. They stopped walking for a moment, standing in the center of the square. The town was fully awake now, but it felt like their own private world still existed between them. Emily reached up and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. A small, gentle gesture that made Jake's heart flutter.
You know, Jake, she said softly, I think tonight taught me something important. That it's okay to trust someone, to let them in.
Even if you've been hurt or disappointed before. And I'm glad I trusted you.
Jake felt a lump in his throat. I'm glad too, he said quietly.
I never thought I'd find someone who sees me for who I am. But you do. They shared a quiet smile, both of them feeling the depth of their bond. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It was about understanding, trust, and the simple joy of being together.
As the sun rose higher, Emily glanced at her watch. I guess we should head back, she said reluctantly.
But not too quickly. I don't want this night to end completely. Jake nodded.
We don't have to rush,
he said. We can take it slow. Enjoy the morning together even if the world is waking up.
They walked slowly through the town, sharing stories, laughter, and small observations about the world around them.
They pointed out birds in the trees, noticed flowers blooming along the sidewalks, and laughed at the antics of children playing nearby. The morning felt long and endless, a continuation of the night they had shared, a time to savor the connection they had built. But, eventually, they reached a small hill overlooking the ranch where Jake lived. The familiar sight of wooden fences, grazing cattle, and the distant mountains gave him a sense of comfort.
Emily looked at the view with admiration. Your life.
It's beautiful, she said softly. Peaceful, strong, and honest. Jake smiled. It's home, he said simply.
And now it feels even better knowing I can share it with someone like you.
Emily reached out and took his hand again. Jake, I'm glad we met, she said. Tonight, this morning, it's something I'll always remember. I'll remember it too, Jake said, feeling a warmth in his chest. And I hope we can have many more nights and mornings like this. They stood together for a while, enjoying the view, the quiet, and the presence of each other. It was a simple, ordinary morning, yet it felt extraordinary because of the bond they had formed. They didn't need grand declarations or dramatic moments. The connection they shared was enough, strong and steady, built on trust, understanding, and genuine care. As the sun climbed higher, Emily sighed contentedly. I should probably head home. she said. But I'm not saying goodbye. Not really.
Understanding completely. I'll see you again, he said.
Soon. And breaths.
We'll continue from where we left off.
Emily smiled, her eyes soft and warm. I'd like that, she said. Very much. With a final squeeze of hands, they began walking in opposite directions. Each step was filled with the knowledge that this night and morning had changed them. They had discovered a rare connection, one that didn't rely on appearances, boldness, or quietness alone. It relied on trust, understanding, and the willingness to see and accept someone fully. Jake returned to his ranch, feeling lighter than he had in years. The fields, the animals, and the open sky seemed brighter, more alive. Emily's laughter, her warmth, and her trust stayed with him, a memory that made him smile quietly to himself. Emily returned home as well, her heart full. She felt seen, valued, and understood in a way she had rarely experienced. She knew the memory of this night and morning would stay with her, a reminder that sometimes unexpected meetings could bring the most meaningful connections.
They both knew the world around them was ordinary, but what they had shared was extraordinary.
Brasp. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic events. It was about being present, being honest, and being willing to open one's heart. And as the day began in full, with townspeople bustling, birds singing, and life moving forward, Jake and Emily carried with them the quiet joy of a night and morning that had changed everything. They had found in each other a rare, gentle companionship, a bond built on trust, understanding, and the promise of many shared moments to come. In their hearts, they both knew sometimes the simplest nights and mornings could leave the deepest marks, and sometimes the most unexpected people could become the most important parts of one's life.